First Contact and Discovery. The Sith science vessel, Eternal Curiosity, dropped out of fold space near the unassuming blue-green planet. Captain Neva Dull stood on the bridge, her four eyes blinking in sequence as she studied the main view screen. The third planet of this unremarkable yellow star had caught the attention of Sith explorers because of unusual radio emissions detected decades earlier. Life signs confirmed, Captain, reported Science Officer Trell, his translucent fingers dancing across the sensor console. Oxygen, nitrogen atmosphere. Significant technological infrastructure. Appears to be a civilization in early space development. Neva's facial tentacles rippled with excitement. This was why she had joined the Sith Exploratory Division, to discover new life, new civilizations. And if the preliminary data was correct, this would be only the 12th intelligent species discovered by the Sith Confederacy in the past millennium. Communications. Prepare standard first contact protocols, she ordered. Let's introduce ourselves to our galactic neighbors. Within hours, Earth's major governments had received the Sith transmission. The initial shock gave way to cautious excitement, and within days, a formal meeting was arranged. The Sith landing party would meet with an international delegation at a neutral facility in Geneva. Science Officer Trell fidgeted nervously as their shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere. Their technological development suggests a species barely 800 years into industrialization, he said, reviewing his datapad. Yet they've already achieved rudimentary space travel and global communications. Fast developers, Neva noted. The Confederacy will be pleased. Young species are easier to integrate into the galactic community. The shuttle landed smoothly on the designated pad where a greeting party waited. Dr. Elena Moravec, Earth's chief diplomat for the encounter, stepped forward as the alien visitors emerged. On behalf of humanity, welcome to Earth, she said, performing the formal bow that had been transmitted in the cultural exchange data. We are honored by your visit and look forward to peaceful relations between our peoples. Neva returned the gesture. The Sith Confederacy extends greetings to the people of Earth. We come in peace and with hopes of mutual understanding and knowledge exchange. The initial meetings went well. The humans were eager to learn about the galaxy beyond their solar system, while the Sith were fascinated by Earth's biodiversity and cultural variety. But it was during a cultural exchange tour at the British Museum that the first discrepancy appeared. This artifact dates back approximately 12,000 years, explained Dr. Hamid Bashir, pointing to an intricately carved stone tablet. It's from the Göbekli Tepe site in what is now Turkey, one of our oldest known ceremonial structures. Trell tilted his head in confusion. 12,000 years. But your industrial civilization is only a few centuries old. Dr. Bashir smiled. True, but human civilization has existed in various forms for much longer. We've built cities, created writing systems, and developed complex societies for millennia. Later, aboard the Eternal Curiosity, Trell brought his concerns to Captain Neva. The timeline doesn't make sense, he insisted. Most species follow a predictable development curve. It took the Sith 15,000 years to progress from simple agriculture to spaceflight. These humans claim to have spent over 10,000 years in a pre-industrial state. Perhaps they're simply slow developers, Neva suggested. Or perhaps there's something they're not telling us. Trell countered. Captain, I request permission to conduct deep planetary scans. Neva hesitated. Deep scans were considered somewhat intrusive under Confederate protocol, but her own curiosity won out. Proceed, but discreetly. 3 days later, Trell burst into Neva's quarters, his skin pulsing with alarming colors of distress. Captain, you need to see this immediately. The scan results showed something impossible. Deep beneath the oceans, under kilometers of sediment, lay the unmistakable geometric patterns of artificial structures, massive buildings, roads, and what appeared to be launch facilities. How old? Neva whispered. Preliminary dating suggests at least 70,000 years, possibly much older, Trell replied, his voice barely audible. And there's more. He brought up another scan showing similar structures beneath the Antarctic ice sheet and buried in the Sahara Desert. "This doesn't make sense," Neva said. "If humans had advanced technology 70,000 years ago, what happened? Why did they regress to a primitive state?" "Unknown, Captain. But I recommend we inform the Confederacy High Council immediately." Neva stared at the scanned results. "Agreed. But I also want to establish a joint research initiative with the humans. Let's see what they know about these structures." Within weeks, 5 joint human Sith archaeological teams were investigating sites around the globe. The humans were just as surprised by the findings as the Sith, or so they claimed. At an underwater site in the Pacific, the team made its first major breakthrough. Dr. Maya Santos, leading the human contingent, carefully extracted a crystalline object from the sediment. It was a perfect cube, approximately 10 centimeters on each side, with intricate patterns etched into its surface. "It's some kind of data storage device," she explained to Sith archaeologist Vren. "It appears to be made of a silicon-carbon composite we can't replicate with our current technology." Vren scanned the object, his eyes widening. "It's still active," he whispered. "After all this time, it still contains energy." When they brought the device to the surface lab, both teams worked together to access its contents. The cube projected holographic images, showing beings that looked remarkably human commanding vast starships. The language was unknown to both species, but certain mathematical symbols were recognizable to the Sith. "These equations," Trell said, pointing to floating symbols, "they're describing faster-than-light propulsion systems similar to our fold drives, but far more advanced, and this appears to be a star map of the entire galaxy." Meanwhile, at other sites around the world, more artifacts were being discovered. A buried chamber in Egypt contained what appeared to be weapons of inconceivable power. A facility in the Andes housed medical technology beyond anything in the Sith Confederacy. Each discovery raised more questions than answers. On the Sith command ship, now in orbit around Earth, Captain Neva received a priority transmission from the Confederate High Council. The stern face of High Counselor Zev filled her screen. "Captain, your reports are most disturbing," he began without preamble. "Our historical archives contain references to an ancient species that dominated the galaxy millions of years ago. They were known simply as the predecessors. They possessed technology that seemed like magic even to advanced civilizations. And then they vanished." Neva felt a chill run through her body. "You think the humans are connected to these predecessors? The evidence suggests they might be descendants, or perhaps were engineered by them for some purpose," Zev replied. "Either way, the Council is concerned. If humans should gain access to predecessor technology, they could pose a significant threat to galactic stability." "The humans have been nothing but peaceful and cooperative," Neva protested. "For now," Zev said coldly, "the Council has made its decision. You are to establish a quarantine around Earth. No human is to leave their solar system, and all research into these artifacts must be controlled by Sith scientists." After the transmission ended, Neva sat in silence. The order felt wrong, unethical, and unnecessary, but she had sworn an oath to the Confederacy. Down on Earth, something strange was happening. As more artifacts were discovered and activated, humans worldwide began reporting unusual dreams, visions of stars and distant worlds they couldn't possibly have seen. Children started drawing complex technical diagrams. Ordinary people suddenly demonstrated knowledge of advanced mathematics and physics without any training. In her Geneva apartment, Dr. Elena Morevic woke from a vivid dream, her mind racing with equations and images. Without thinking, she grabbed a pen and paper, sketching designs for what she somehow knew was a quantum communication device. As the pen moved across the paper, a part of her wondered how she could possibly know these things. Across the globe, millions of others were experiencing the same phenomenon. Humanity was remembering something long forgotten, something buried deep in their collective DNA. And as the memories surfaced, ancient systems began to activate. defense platforms buried beneath the oceans, monitoring stations hidden in mountain ranges, and a vast network that had lain dormant for millennia. Aboard the Eternal Curiosity, alarms blared as sensors detected massive energy signatures emanating from Earth. Trell stared at the readings in disbelief. "Captain," he said, his voice shaking, "something is awakening on the planet. Energy readings consistent with predecessor technology are appearing everywhere, and they're growing stronger." Neva looked at the beautiful blue planet on her view screen and made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Contact the High Council," she ordered. "Tell them we may have made a terrible mistake." Awakening and revelation. The Zith Confederate battle fleet emerged from fold space in perfect formation. 57 warships surrounding Earth, their weapon systems charged and ready. High Commander Jorax stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Inevitable Justice, his expression grim as he surveyed the view screen. "All ships in position, Commander," his first officer reported. "Quarantine protocols ready to implement." Jorax nodded. "Begin the operation." On Earth, governments worldwide scrambled to understand what was happening. The skies filled with alien vessels far larger than the diplomatic ships that had visited before. Communications from the Zith had ceased abruptly, replaced with a terse message. "For the security of the galaxy, Earth is now under quarantine. Resistance will not be tolerated." In Geneva, an emergency meeting of world leaders convened. Dr. Elena Moravec addressed the gathered officials, her eyes bright with an unnatural intensity that had appeared in recent days. "The Zith are afraid," she explained, drawing complex diagrams on a digital board without reference to any notes. "They've realized what's happening to us before we fully understand it ourselves." "And what exactly is happening, Doctor?" asked the Secretary General. Elena's hand moved across the board with impossible precision. "We're remembering. Knowledge encoded in our DNA is resurfacing. Knowledge that was placed there intentionally long ago." Around the conference table, others nodded. Many had experienced the same phenomenon. Sudden insights, technical knowledge appearing in their minds without study, abilities they couldn't explain. "The artifacts we've been uncovering with the Zith," Elena continued, "they're not just random remnants of an ancient civilization. They're keys, triggers designed to activate dormant systems and dormant knowledge within us." High above, aboard the Eternal Curiosity, Captain Neva Dul faced a communication screen showing the stern visage of High Commander Jorax. "Your research vessel is ordered to withdraw immediately," Jorax stated flatly. "The Confederate Council has classified humans as a potential Class 1 threat. We will implement containment protocols until a final determination is made." "Commander, I strongly advise against this action," Neva argued. "The humans have shown no hostile intent. Their awakening capabilities appear to be defensive in nature, triggered by our deep scans and investigations." "Your objection is noted, Captain," Jorax replied coldly. "Now comply with your orders." The screen went dark. Neva turned to Science Officer Trell, who stood nearby with his skin cycling through anxious colors. "What have we done?" she whispered. On Earth, the awakening accelerated. In laboratories worldwide, scientists suddenly understood principles that had eluded humanity for centuries. Engineers designed devices that shouldn't be possible with Earth's current manufacturing capabilities, yet somehow they worked. Children drew star maps of systems never observed by human telescopes, naming worlds no human had ever seen. And beneath the oceans, buried under mountains, and hidden in plain sight, ancient systems stirred to life. The first sign came when the Zith attempted to deploy atmospheric suppression fields, technology designed to interfere with planetary communications and prevent spacecraft launches. As the energy beams lanced toward Earth from the Zith vessels, something unexpected happened. A shimmering golden barrier materialized in the upper atmosphere, intercepting and dispersing the beams harmlessly into space. Similar energy shields appeared over major cities and research facilities. "Impossible," gasped the weapons officer aboard the Inevitable Justice. "These are predecessor defense systems, They shouldn't be operational after so many millennia. Commander Jorax gripped the arms of his command chair. Maximum scan of planetary surface. Find the control centers for these shields and target them. But the scans revealed something even more alarming. The shields weren't being generated from specific locations. The entire planet seemed to be producing the protective field, like a living organism defending itself. In Washington, D.C., General Maya Santos, formerly Dr. Santos of the Underwater Archaeological Team, stood in the Pentagon's command center. Without training, without ever having studied military strategy or weapons systems, she now understood exactly what the Sith were attempting and how to counter it. The planetary defense grid is online, she announced to the assembled military leaders. It was always here, waiting. 3 more systems are coming online now. Orbital platforms disguised as natural satellites. On screens around the room, objects previously thought to be asteroids in Earth orbit began transforming. Mechanical components unfolding from rocky shells that had concealed them for thousands of years. "What are your orders, General?" asked the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. General Santos looked at the screens showing the Sith fleet. "We wait. We don't fire first. But we make it clear we can defend ourselves." In orbit, the Sith fleet detected the activating orbital platforms. Several captains, panicking at the sudden appearance of predecessor weapons, opened fire. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked toward Earth. None reached their targets. The golden shield absorbed every attack, growing stronger with each impact. Then, without warning, tendrils of energy extended from Earth's atmosphere, reaching out toward the Sith vessels, like golden fingers. Evasive action. Commander Jorax ordered, but it was too late. The energy tendrils didn't attack the ships. They simply touched them, and as they did, every system aboard the Sith vessels went dark. Weapons, engines, life support, all disabled in an instant. Only basic life support and communications remained functional. On the inevitable justice, Commander Jorax stared at the darkened consoles in disbelief. What have they done to us? A communication request chimed on the only functioning screen. Jorax hesitated, then accepted the transmission. The face that appeared belonged to Elena Moravec, but something about her eyes had changed. They seemed older, wiser, as if the person looking through them had lived for millennia. "Commander Jorax," she began, her voice calm and measured, "your fleet is currently neutralized. We have disabled your offensive capabilities while maintaining your life support systems. We have no desire to harm you or your crews." "What are you?" Jorax demanded. Elena smiled softly. "We are humanity, the same people you met weeks ago. But we are also remembering who we once were." "The predecessors," Jorax whispered. "Yes," Elena acknowledged, "though we called ourselves by another name. Millions of years ago, our civilization spanned this galaxy and others. We developed technology that bent the very laws of physics to our will. We explored, we built, we created, but we also destroyed. You were conquerors," Jorax stated flatly. "We were many things," Elena replied. "Explorers, builders, scientists. And yes, warriors when necessary. But eventually, we became something worse. We became gods. The power we wielded corrupted us. Factions arose. Wars followed. Entire star systems were destroyed in our conflicts." On screens throughout the Sith fleet, similar transmissions played. Each showed a human explaining the same history. "The final war nearly destroyed everything," Elena continued. "Those of us who survived came to realize what we have become. We made a choice to start again, to forget our technology and power, to live as simple beings on this one world." "You erased your own civilization," Jorax said incredulously. "We did. We encoded our knowledge and technology in our DNA, to be awakened only if absolutely necessary for our survival. We built the defense systems as a precaution, then deliberately reduced ourselves to primitive hunter-gatherers. We chose to evolve again, naturally, hoping we might develop wisdom alongside technology this time. Throughout the disabled Sith fleet, commanders and crews listened in stunned silence. Your scans, your investigations, and finally your aggressive actions triggered our awakening, Elena explained. The fail-safes our ancestors built into our genetic code, activated in response to a perceived extinction-level threat. On the Eternal Curiosity, Captain Neva watched the transmission with growing understanding. They weren't hiding, she murmured to Trell. They were starting over, giving themselves a second chance. In the Pentagon Command Center, General Santos monitored the global situation. The awakening was stabilizing. Humanity hadn't regained all the knowledge of their ancestors, just enough to defend themselves and understand their past. Connection established with all Sith vessels, a communications officer reported. They're standing down. Santos nodded. Open a channel to Commander Jorax. When the Sith commander's face appeared on her screen, Santos spoke clearly and confidently. Commander, we propose the following. Your fleet will withdraw to a distance of 1 light-year from our solar system. We will send representatives to meet with your Confederate Council to establish peaceful relations. Your research vessels may remain if they wish to continue our joint studies, under new protocols we will establish together. And if we refuse? Jorax asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. We prefer not to demonstrate what else these defense systems can do, Santos replied evenly. Our ancestors built them to repel threats far greater than your fleet. After a long moment, Jorax nodded. I will convey your terms to the Council. 3 months later, the first human delegation arrived at the Confederate capital world. Elena Moravec led the diplomatic team, accompanied by scientists and scholars who were still coming to terms with their new knowledge and abilities. The Great Hall of the Confederate Council fell silent as the humans entered. High Counselor Zev, who had ordered the quarantine, watched with a mixture of fear and fascination as these descendants of the legendary predecessors approached the central platform. Elena stepped forward. Counselors of the Sith Confederacy, we come in peace, truly and sincerely. We are not the predecessors who once dominated this galaxy. We are humanity, their children who have grown up differently, who have struggled, failed, and learned as all young species do. She gestured to the human delegation behind her. We have awakened to our heritage, but we choose not to reclaim their empire. We remember their power, but also their mistakes. We wish to join this galactic community not as conquerors or gods, but as equals. Murmurs spread through the council chamber. Zev leaned forward in his seat. How can we trust that this awakening will not continue? That you will not become what your ancestors were? Because we remember why they chose to forget. Elena answered. We carry not just their knowledge but their regret, their desire for redemption. We remember the worlds they destroyed, the species they extinguished in their arrogance. That memory is our safeguard. On the sidelines, Captain Neva Dull watched the proceedings with Science Officer Trell. Do you believe them? Trell whispered. Neva considered the question. She had spent months studying the humans, before and after their awakening. Yes, she replied finally. They could have destroyed our fleet, conquered our worlds with the technology they're rediscovering. Instead, they're here, talking. In the center of the chamber, Elena extended her hand to High Counselor Zev, a human gesture of friendship. Our ancestors once ruled through fear and power, she said. We choose a different path. We choose cooperation, mutual growth, and respect. The predecessors are gone, by their own choice. Humanity stands in their place, not to reclaim their empire, but to help build something better. After a long moment, Zev rose from his seat and extended his four-fingered hand to meet hers. On Earth, children still dreamed of stars and distant worlds. Scientists unlocked technologies that would propel humanity forward by centuries. But the most dangerous weapons, the tools of planetary destruction and stellar manipulation, remained locked away in human DNA, access restricted by the very ancestors who had once wielded them so carelessly. In time, humanity would join the greater galactic community, bringing with them not just the recovered wisdom of the predecessors, but something the predecessors had lost: humility, earned through millennia of struggling as a young species on a single world. And in libraries across the Sith Confederacy, the historical records were updated. The predecessors were no longer listed as extinct, but rather transformed. Their descendants walked among the stars again, not as conquerors, but as the newest members of a community their ancestors had once ruled with an iron fist. The cycle had come full circle. And this time, perhaps, the ending would be different.